Mr. Smith, if I can get you to say your first, your last name, spell them for me, and then your current position.
Sure. I'm Jonathan Smith, and I'm the Executive Director of the Washington Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights and Urban Affairs. The spelling is JONATHANSMITH.
That's the hardest question right there. I always tell people, and apparently
Yeah.
it was this time around.
Yeah, I don't know. Not enough coffee yet this morning or something. To stumble over the spelling of your own name is a bit odd, but yes, my apologies.
I'm with you on that one. Well, let's just get right to it. Mr. Smith, there has been a lot of controversy, obviously, over this case, and specifically that this is the second investigation that the city of Aurora has issued because of some controversy with the first investigator there. What are you planning on bringing to the investigation this time around?
Sure. So, well, thank you. I understand that the prior investigation had not been completed, and there were concerns raised about the identity of the person who was leading the investigation. I intend to come to this investigation with a completely open mind. I will review the information that is available and hope to provide advice and guidance to the city based upon the facts as they develop and where the information leads us.
Were you familiar at all with this case before taking this position?
Well, I'd certainly seen the media reports, but I have no other information about the case.
As far as the panel that you will be leading, will you have a say in the other people who are on that panel? And do you have any idea who they might be at this time?
So I'm working very closely with the city officials on the selection of additional members of the panel. It is ultimately up to the city to decide who the panel members are, but I've been consulted and we are working together to identify appropriate people to flesh out the panel.
Mr. Smith, what is your experience with a case like this?
So I've been a civil rights lawyer for 35 years. I've done a significant portion of the work I have done has been in the criminal justice area, both police accountability and in prisons and jails. Over the course of my career, I've had the opportunity to review lots of incidents and to investigate what happened and try to understand how it has been affected by policy, by training, hiring practices, supervision, and guidance. When I was at the Department of Justice, I led the Civil Rights Division section, the Special Litigation section, which was responsible for investigations of police departments all across the country and participated in more than 20 investigations of police departments. We were required in those cases not only to look more generally at the patterns in the department, but at specific incidents that made up the pattern. And so I've had the opportunity in a range of ways to be able to evaluate incidents such as this.
And my understanding is you've actually been on some pretty high-profile cases. Can you elaborate on any of those? I know you investigated the Ferguson Police Department after the death of Michael Brown.
Sure. The Special Litigation section has the authority, or is given the authority, to look at patterns and practices of police departments all across the United States. And I was in the Department of Justice from 2010 through 2015. And over that time period, we looked at police departments all across the country. The last investigation I worked on was the Ferguson Police Department, but New Orleans, Seattle, Portland, Oregon, Newark, New Jersey, Cleveland, Ohio, Albuquerque, New Mexico, and a range of other cities. And so that is, I believe that will be useful in this investigation, not only because of the experience that brings in looking at other incidents, but also understanding and seeing the kinds of practices that other departments around the country are employing to address any concerns that might be raised as a result of this investigation.
What kind of insight did those investigations give you that you were able to bring into your current work?
Well, that's kind of a big question. We at the Special Litigation section, we did top to bottom reviews of police departments, and we were able to dig fairly deeply into looking at the range of ways, both first to determine what went wrong in those departments. Was there a pattern of a violation of the Constitution or federal law? And if there was, what went wrong and where did those, were those problems, how did they evolve in policy? It was become my very firm belief that while there are people in policing that may commit individual bad acts, that the majority of the problems that we're seeing around the country in terms of policing has led to the protests is not a problem of bad apples, but is a problem of systemic issues that emerge inside police departments. And being able to see how the conduct of an individual officer is affected by the policy guidance that they receive from the department and the adequacy of that policy guidance and the values that it reflects, the kind of supervision that an officer might receive and the impact that that has on officer behavior. Systems of accountability that either work to identify issues and adjust both individual behavior but also departmental behavior, or fail to do that. The way that a training academy or hiring practices can influence what happens on the street. And so I think that that experience will be very helpful as we look to see if anything went wrong. Clearly something went wrong that Mr. McClain died, but was there a violation of current policy in Aurora? And if there was not a violation of current policy, should there be changes to policy and practices in the department? And as we do that evaluation, having been able to look at departments around the country will be very useful experience in terms of understanding what's happening in Aurora and how any issues that might be identified in the course of the investigation can be addressed.
Are you currently involved in any other reviews similar to this with any other cities?
Yes. I'm currently a part of an expert review team in Fort Worth, Texas. We were brought on after the shooting death of Atatiana Jefferson in October of last year. And I'm part of the team that is assessing policies and practices in Fort Worth.
There are multiple investigations happening right now, specifically around the Elijah McClain case. We're talking about potential one at the federal level. There has been one ordered at the state level, and then now this one at the city level. I think a lot of people are having a hard time deciphering what the outcomes of each one might be. What specifically are you guys looking for in this case, and what might be changes that are brought about, if you understand what I'm asking?
Sure, no, I understand. And it's very hard to prejudge at this point what our conclusions are. It's impossible to prejudge what our conclusions will be. We need to see the evidence and the facts and come to some decisions and make recommendations to the city. But the investigations are very different. The Attorney General of the state and the federal government, the United States Attorney and the FBI, are investigating whether or not any of the officers that were involved committed a crime, either under state law or under federal law. The question that has been asked of this panel is to assess whether there was anything that should be done differently with regard to policies, practices, and procedures of the department, to try to identify what went wrong if something did go wrong, and how it can the city can address that to avoid problems in the future. And so it's a very different inquiry. We will be careful not to interfere with the investigation of either the state or the federal government. We'll be very careful not to interfere with any of the individual rights of any officer who might be the subject of that investigation. But our inquiry is different. It is really to provide guidance to the city about how to address the way that it operates its police department going forward.
This is obviously a case that has deeply impacted the community there in Aurora, and a lot of people across the country, quite honestly. It's going to be heavily scrutinized as you continue to do your work as well. And I'm sure it's not lost on you that even the McClain family themselves will be watching closely. What are your comments there as you continue to do your work, understanding that there are people really relying on thorough work to happen here?
Well, we are approaching this project, or I'm approaching this project with great seriousness. We have been promised that we can function independently, that without influence from the city or the police department or others, that the city wants a fair, independent, candid evaluation, and we are going to approach this project with that level of seriousness. I come to it, knowing only what's been in the media and not prejudging what the outcome will be. and hope that as we move through and develop the record and the facts, that we will learn more and can provide some guidance that will help begin healing in the community.
Is there anything I didn't ask you at this time? I understand you're busy. That's all I have on the list of questions.
Okay, no, I think that covers it.
All right, perfect.
You can imagine, at this stage of the investigation, we've not started. We have no conclusions. It's very important that we maintain that level of independence and objectivity. And so, I genuinely am coming to this with the hope and expectation that we will be able to get a record that will elucidate the facts.
Mr. Smith, I'm sure this is not the last time we will be speaking. I appreciate you
Sure.
taking the time for me this morning. Thank you so much.
Not at all. Thank you very much.
All right, you have a great rest of your day.
Take care. Yeah, bye-bye.